This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
My name is Kiani Mills, and this podcast is created to help you see, feel, and experience the human side of business. I'm a business owner, an entrepreneur, and a parent. And like many who have travelled this path before me, I've been through the lows of the lows and the gut-wrenching pain. But I've been through the triumphs and the wins and the indescribable highs, all of which I consider to be my lessons in the school of life. On this show, we are going to start some conversations to ignite new world ideas into some very old age businesses. So if you're a leader, a business mind, or an entrepreneur, get ready to think, act, and feel differently so that we can all reach a new level of business success together. So, what are you waiting for?
Welcome back to this week's episode of She Can Humanise Business. Thank you for joining us once again, and I'm really excited to have today's guest on. Not only is she one of my best friends, but she inspired me to do this podcast and many others through her Guide Your Light network. If you haven't been onto the network yet, jump on. There's some amazing podcasters on there doing incredible things. Some of the statistics are mind-blowing. So I was new to podcasting. I'm not anymore. I know all of it. She's also the amazing host of her own podcast, which is called Things You Can't Unhear. And again, some of the guests that she's had and the stories she's told, I could talk about this woman all day. But Maritza, thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thanks, Kiani, for having me. I'm thrilled to be on She Can Humanising Business. I feel like I've been part of this journey for a while, so it's a pleasure.
I know, and it's so beautiful because you did join Andy and I on the Humanising Business version. So now we've got my own little spin with it, and you were definitely a massive part of that. So a big thank you for making this all happen.
Yeah, couldn't have asked for a better voice to share. And that's what I'm all about, is elevating voices who can create change in the world. So yeah, thank you. Amazing. Too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's exactly why I want you here today. And this is something that you and I have joked about for so long. Like, you're not the podcast girl. You are the lady who helps people discover their voices. So that is why I want you here today, speaking to my audience. But before we kick it off, I must ask you, what does humanizing business in a She Can version, the new 2023 version of humanizing business, what does it mean to you?
Oh, okay. I love that question, because I could actually get teary thinking about it, because I've really empowered myself over the last couple of years to step into this version of myself where I can bring my whole world together, still do all the things that I love to do, but run and create a business off the back of that. And I suppose, letting go of fears has been a big thing, and stepping into uncertain and unknown environments and just allowing things to happen naturally as well. So that's what it means to me. And I could actually go on about that forever, but it's such a good topic that you have created off the basis of this podcast. It's important.
And I love that so much, because it's so true, isn't it? It's powerful and it is empowering, because we don't have to do business the way it's always been done. And we're watching the world open and birth a new way of doing it. So thank you for joining me. Now, I believe you've got some amazing tips for us on the power of voice. Tell us what you're going to share with us today.
I do. I'm really passionate about the way people share their voices. And like you said earlier, podcasting is the vehicle that I've chosen to do that in, for my clients and for myself at this particular time. But it really is the voice and the mission behind what people are about that excite me. And when I think about people in work settings and in corporations, after COVID, a lot of people were really thrown into a world of where they had to present in a way that they'd never done before, because everyone was faced with a Zoom call and boardrooms no longer existed, and people needed to have presentation skills. And I realized after being and sitting in a lot of Zoom calls that people did not have presentation skills. They had empowering messages and interesting knowledge to share, but they had no idea how to actually share it. And, I've worked in media for 15 to 20 years, and I've had the training, and I've had, I worked in radio, I worked in TV, I've worked on digital media. I've had the training, but I know that I was hopeless before all of that training as well. And for people who are sitting in corporate settings and having to just be thrown into these new environments, how were they supposed to navigate that?
Yeah. That's like one of the biggest fears in life, public speaking.
Yeah, well, apparently, according to the statistics, more people fear public speaking than they do death. So this is a huge attribute to that, and preparing people for what they need in order to shift that fear and to be able to communicate with confidence and to engage an audience in this way. Yeah. And I'm going to take you through. There's 9 tips that I put together because people were always coming to me about this. And I said, right, I'm going to save some time. I'm creating a kit. And I actually run
all
through
about
this.
saving time.
Exactly. You've taught me that too, actually. Now, I actually run through this with corporate leaders as well. So it's been an integral part of their learning and teaching. But all right, I'll start. So tip number 1 is, and you're all going to know this, that we say, right, Maritza, we know preparation. You've got to prepare before you start any presentation, whether it's a Zoom presentation, whether you're standing on stage, whether you are sitting around a boardroom. Prepare to the point where it relaxes you and your nervousness has gone, because you are equipped to handle any question that comes your way. There is a beautiful middle ground with preparation, though, that I think is very important to note.
Really important to mention, yes.
Because when you over prepare, what happens? You become a robot to your preparation notes. And to be honest, I started this way. I would script to the full stop and comma exactly what I wanted to say. And I'd be really pissed at myself if I didn't deliver it exactly like that. And I'd come off stage, or I'd come off a presentation and I'd read my script and I'd be like, damn, I didn't say that. And I didn't say that. And it was just not a natural flow to it. So there is a beautiful middle ground to preparing where you can go, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know the content. I'm well educated on it, but I'm not going to script myself. I'm going to use dot points or bullet points. And that is going to be my trigger to what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And I actually feel like there's a really beautiful, natural thing, especially if you are interviewing someone. If you over prepare and you learn everything there is to know about this person, you're not letting them guide the conversation and do the interview for you. I've watched so many interviewers take over because they have so much information that they kind of take the words out of the person's mouth. You're like, no, I want to hear it all. I want to learn something new. Tell me something I didn't know.
Exactly. And the worst possible thing you can do as an interviewer, and thank you for bringing interviewing up, is if you have 10 questions set out for your interview and you're just reading those interview questions and not responding to what the person has said in response to question 1, and you've jumped onto question 2, that is not an interview. That is not a conversation. That is just a robotic delivery of information that no one's going to emotionally connect to. Yep, so that's a big one. All right. This is number 2, and this is equally as important. Know your audience. Who are you talking to? Why are they there? What do they want to hear? What do they want to learn? What do they want to feel? What is it that they want to leave that room with as a result of listening to your voice? You keep that in the back of your head the entire time you're presenting, you've done your job. You'd know this with the presentations that you do. How do you go into knowing your audience?
Yeah, 100%, because you have a different tone, you have a different stories, you have a different approach as to whether you're going in and speaking to children or you're going in to speak to a big corporate. And I take that kind of know your audience one step further, in a sense that you dress for your audience, you speak to your audience. If you're on a tradie site, drop the F-bomb. If you're in the corporate C-suite office, mirror their images, mirror their behavior. So I feel like this know your audience comes down to the demographic, the age, the persona, who they are, what they like, dislikes, things like that. There really is an air of having to be a chameleon in these environments, especially when you are presenting, because your job is to connect with your audience. And if you don't know who your audience is, then likely fact is you won't connect.
I love that addition, Kiani. I think that's really important because you're right. Walking into a room full of tradies wearing a bright pink dress and, high heels, it's probably not going to get the response that you're after, or it might.
Depends why you're there.
You never know why you're there. Exactly right. I love that addition. All right. Number 3 is my most favorite point, and it's starting with storytelling. So you've already prepared, you know who you're going to talk to. Now you're there in front of them. And the first thing you say to them is a story. 90% of people believe that a strong narrative or a story in a presentation is critical for engagement. I'm definitely in that 90%. I'm sure you are too.
Me too.
What storytelling does is emotionally connects someone to what you're talking about. So if you connect emotion to what you're delivering, that is the one thing that people are going to remember when they walk out of the room. They will remember the story, but then they'll also remember what it is you say after the story, but the story will be the trigger to remembering it because they've connected emotionally. So emotion is the glue that makes the memory stick.
Oh, I love that too, because emotion is the human.
Exactly right. And you know what? People are like, I don't have that many stories. I can't be raveling out stories all the time. I've got limited stories. There's 2 answers to that. One, they don't actually need to be your stories.
Yeah.
They can be stories that you've heard and that you're passing on, or they can be so when I started formulating my stories, I actually created a list of 25 stories that were life-defining career moments and life-defining personal life moments. And I've got a list and a library that I use, and I come back to when it suits who my audience is and how do I bring them in. So that has really helped me to go, okay, I've got a story for that. I've got a story for that. And I can instantly engage people through storytelling.
Yeah. Or if you're like me, you send me the list of stories that I need to write and I look at it and go,
overwhelmed?
I don't know where to start. There's too many stories. I'm doing none.
Yes, I actually remember the first time you gave me your story library, and I thought I knew you. I'd known you for 7 years. I thought I knew you, and I said, Kiani, wow, there is a lot I did not know about you.
Surprise.
You're a very well-lived individual for such a young woman. I love it.
Oh, dear.
So the best.
Next one.
Well, there's one more thing I want to add to this. The best thing about stories is the story, as we said, engages a person, but then you can lead them to a fact or a statistic. And that fact or statistic then leads them on to a call to action. So whatever you want them to do as a result of what you said in that story and that fact really works well in that formula. So story linked by a fact or a statistic linked to a call to action. Remember that. And if anyone takes anything from this, write that down, because that has worked for me.
Oh my God, I love that. And instantly I go, right, connection, fact, credibility, call to action, take action.
Exactly.
I love that.
It's a perfect formula. Actually, Jay Shetty, that's where I heard that from. And if you don't know Jay Shetty, look him up. He's incredible, and his content is incredible, and he's just so engaging and so interesting to listen to. So if he's giving out the tips, I'm taking them.
Absolutely. Fill up the shopping basket.
You're going to love number 4, Kiani.
Ooh, I'm so excited.
Well, and it's breath. Just breath. So I heard something the other day. It was the only difference between living and dying is breathing. So if you are nervous or excited or are feeling all the emotions when you're presenting, you forget to breathe. And then your memory jumbles up, your speech becomes lower. There's not enough conviction in the way that you're speaking. You're not oxygenating your brain. You're not able to think clearly. Breath is one of the most powerful techniques to center you and bring you back to where you are meant to be. And if you incorporate that as your only thing, if you've got all the other things right, but you need to just tweak the way that you present, breath in between sentences and in preparation to you even standing up in front of people is going to be a game changer.
Oh, I love that so much, because you're right. Breath work is so important and critical. on a day-to-day basis to help regulate stress, to help deal with unnecessary children outbursts.
Yeah.
Other people, like, your breath is your number one. It's like your control system, your internal dial that helps you dial up and dial back down again. And I know for me that a lot of times before I go on to speak, I forget to breathe at all. So then I get really lightheaded. I'm like, oh, I can't do this, I'm dizzy. I'm like, oh no, that's right, I'm just suffocating myself by not breathing. I love that. Yeah.
Do you know what else breath does? And this is something that people come to me a lot, is how can I please reduce my ums and my ahs? I can't get rid of my ums and my ahs. Well, guess what? All you have to do is replace your ums and your ahs and your you knows with a breath. And it takes some training. I was guilty of being a girl for a while there. And I thought, how am I going to get rid of this habit? And then I heard that, just replace that with a breath. And now they're limited. I feel like I listen back to podcast interviews and I'll say maybe 95% of the time I did not use an or an ah. Still use the you knows a little bit. So I'm working on that, but it definitely helps. So that's a really great tip.
Fantastic. I love it.
All right. Number 5 is language. I'm speaking to the right person. I know I am. Language is something that I'm very passionate about, and it is something that really makes all the difference in everyday life, in business, in any setting, in family life, in friendships. The way that you speak and the way that you deliver and the tone that you're using makes all the difference. And I actually say it to my husband all the time. I believe what you're saying. I agree with you. It's the delivery that I'm not agreeing with. So yeah. It's interesting. And that's when we're arguing, but it's
true. Someone's tonality. And I know for me, there are certain people that their tone makes me instantly feel uncomfortable. They're safe. I know they're a good person, but my internal physiology is instantly impacted by the tone and the delivery. So I absolutely understand. And language it's so finical. One word can change. And this is my lawyer coming out. One word can change the entire meaning of a whole sentence. Exactly. One pause in the wrong place, one comma or full stop in the wrong place can change the whole meaning of an entire sentence. So language is so important.
And also, if you craft your language in a way that's inclusive. So when you are talking to a group of people, instead of saying you, why don't you replace that with we, us, this inclusive outlook into this information that we are shared around a table for, or we're shared in a group for. When it becomes a we and an us, it's like you're a team and there's not a leader that's delivering this information to you. And I do this on my podcast a lot. I use very inclusive language so that people know that we're in it together. But I also direct it as though I'm talking to one person in a way. So yes. you can talk as though you're talking to a room of 1,000 people, but it doesn't hit people the same way as if you're talking to one person.
Absolutely.
And when that information lands in your ears, they're like, oh, Maritza's talking directly to me, even though hundreds of people might be listening to it. I'm receiving that information as though she's talking just to me.
Yeah, and this is a really good tip for people who are listening that have teams or manage staff. If you're a leader in any way, shape, or form, your delivery in your language is so critical. Even little things down to I have to do this. No, I get to do this. We make choices every day with the things that we have to do and the things that we get to do, what are needs and what are wants. These things, especially when you are leading by example from the top of the tree, we have to be so aware of the way that we deliver things to others, because we are surrounded by people who are modeling up to be like us, learning from us, are inspired by us, are encouraged by us. If it starts at the top, as we know, the tree rots all the way down. So if you're a leader, this is a really, really big one.
Yeah, agreed. I love that. All right. Number 6 is interaction. So this can be scary for a lot of people actually, because they just want to get up there, deliver what they want to say and sit back down and go back into their hole and cover their face. So when you're actually up there, enjoy it a little bit and interact with people, because that sort of wakes people up from their coma as well, in a way. And they know they have to be listening because they might be called on to participate. So it also makes people think. So when you deliver a question, and it doesn't actually have to be answered, it can be a rhetorical question. So you ask a question, hey, have you ever felt like you were stuck in this way? Or has this ever happened to you? What was your experience of this? And if you're standing on stage, using this example of someone standing on stage, ask the question and raise your hand and nod as a response. Because when you do that, I mean, it doesn't actually matter if anyone's replying or, being responsive to the question. It doesn't matter. You respond on behalf of them. You don't look like a weirdo. People are not going to look around and see who's nodding and who's putting their hand up. It's just not going to happen. So nod. Yeah, you guys agree. You can answer your own question, and it breaks up the delivery. It breaks up the way the information's landing, and it actually gets people's brains thinking in a different way. Oh, hey, I didn't think about using myself in that situation. Hey, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. So that's a really great one as well.
And I'm picking up as well, there's a couple of common themes here, if you guys haven't heard this already. Inclusivity. Again, it's a way to include the crowd into your presentation. It's a way to include the team if you're asking rhetorical questions. Get them thinking, because I know for a lot of us, I know that I'm guilty of it. If I'm listening to a presentation and I don't relate personally, so meaning that I haven't had a personal experience or know someone who's had a personal experience with what they're speaking about at that moment, I'm only 50% there. Because for me, I can't, it's not about me. So, oh yeah, I'm sure there's other people in the audience that are really getting a lot out of this, but the minute there is a question that is posed that perhaps gives you the opportunity to put yourself in those shoes or consider, how would you respond? How would you behave? How would you be if this happened to you? All of a sudden it becomes personal. And look, we are pretty self-centered beings. Things have to hit home. And if they don't hit home in the first instance, very good presenters can make it hit home by making you think about the way that it would impact you. And that then makes you feel included in the presentation or in the pitch, or even if it's a staff meeting, it doesn't have to be a big grandiose thing. But to get engagement, you need to make everybody feel a part of the team. And so the inclusivity, it's come up in a couple of your points now. So
yeah, I'm a very inclusive person, but here's a stat for you. 65% of people are more easily persuaded in presentations that incorporate a two-way interaction. So that's a huge chunk of people.
No one wants to be spoken to or spoken at.
Agreed.
So that doesn't surprise me.
Agreed. 100% agreed. All right. Number 7. I absolutely love this one.
Oh, I'm excited now.
It's called the pause.
Oh, I love this. I'm so glad that this is one of your numbers, because I was like holding on to the end, because if she doesn't say it, I'm going to say it.
Well, do you remember the first time you heard about the pause?
I do.
Yeah. Do you remember where you heard it from?
Yeah. Well, Troy.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he described it as the power of the pause.
So Troy's someone that's helped you with some of your scripts, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the power of the pause. And if you want to look this up and see an example of this done in the most incredible way, Google Barack Obama pause. Incredible. So when I first heard about the pause, I'm like, what's this pause? I'm not doing a pause. This is crazy.
What a waste of time.
Get my words out and finish this thing. When you put pause in your speech with purpose at the right time, people lean in to what you're about to say. They're like, ooh, hang on. She stopped. What's she about to say? Something interesting is about to come up. Something interesting that I need to listen to is about to come up. That brief moment of silence can engage your listeners in no other way. And it's how funny is it that silence is the thing that engages them the most?
It's the intrigue, it's the possibility, it's the wonder. Like, we're all waiting to be inspired. And you're right, the Barack Obama one is monumental. I definitely can't do it like he does, but that's a really scary thing. it is a really scary thing to do. So
I'm glad you said that, because I feel like that comes with a lot of practice and confidence. And it's something that as a speaker over time, you're like, I'm ready for the pause. I'm bringing the pause in. And when you use it the first time, you're like, ooh, that was sort of amazing. But you know what else it does? It doesn't only let your information land on who's listening. It actually gives your brain, your little brain as a speaker, a few seconds to go, oh, okay, all right, filing cabinet, what's coming up next? Where am I in my presentation? Okay, all right, got it. Good. This is amazing. I know what's coming next.
yeah.
And so for those people who speak really fast and try to just get all of it out, this is revolutionary for your brain to go, okay, hang on, this is amazing. I've got time to think as well.
Absolutely. And little things like write it in the script. I know for the first time I did, there's big like pause in big letters on my page, because if you don't, you'll forget. As you said, little brain, if you don't do breathing, you'll forget.
Yeah.
But interesting as well that the tips before have come into play again, is because you must know your audience to be able to know when the pause, or the most impactful point to pause, and those kinds of things. So all of the homework in the lead up to the pause is so critical. You can't just go out there and throw out a pause at any old time. It is a tool, and it's a resource, and it's something that is, I feel like it's like this little magic trick that you pull out of the bag.
100%. And I love it. It's so good that we can, find these little tools and incorporate them in our speaking and our presenting journey, whether it be to one person, 20 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, a boardroom, it doesn't matter. You could be having a conversation with your daughter or your son or your boss or your employees. These tools are important for any type of communication, truly, and they work in all types of forms.
Oh, fun little fact. Kobe had to do a verbal presentation at school on Monday, and he was really nervous in the lead up to it. And he's like, I just don't know if it was 1 minute, and he's in year 8. He's like, I just don't know if I've got enough for 1 minute. And I said, power of the pause, mate.
Yes.
So you put three pauses in that presentation, you're going to get the minute. And you're gonna pause after the questions. He came home on the Monday afternoon. He's like,
you did it. Handy having a mum as a speaker when you're trying to do a presentation. I was trying to take my daughter through these as well. She wasn't really interested, but I'm sure she will be one day.
She will when she has to stand up in front of her class and give a presentation.
Correct. All right. Number 8 is pace and tone. And we've talked about this a little bit, but if I sit here and I talk to you like this, are you going to get pretty bored very easily? I think you are, because, oh my God, I'm bored of myself. Lots of people do that, unfortunately. And do you remember that movie, Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Do you know that movie? Yeah. A lot of people know it's quite famous, but there's a teacher who stands up in front of everyone and he's got this monotone voice and he's like, Bueller. And then you see the kids and they're drooling on the desks and they can't keep their eyes open. They're like trying to use toothpicks to keep their eyes open because they're so bored. That's because he had this monotone voice with no pace, no change of pace, and no change of tone. So when you speak in conversation to someone, it is a variation of these things. It's a natural, we naturally use pace and tone in conversation. But the minute someone reads a script, it sounds completely different. The minute they're trying to remember something and it just sounds robotic and everything's at the same level. So you got to remember to bring in the highs and the lows of your voice and the fast and the slows. We talked about pause, and that's the slow and the stopping, but it creates flow and it makes your message sound more conversational, like we said, and much, much, much more engaging.
Absolutely. And as you said before too, over prepare. That would be this time, because your script, if you know your script too well, or if you're reading from a piece of paper, it's very likely that we're going to move into this. We'll lose the tone and we'll lose the pace.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, even we talked about interviews before and, not responding to someone's question and just being stuck to the outcome of those questions, for example, is going to steer away from that pace and tone too, because you're not listening intently enough. And listening is a huge thing as well. You can listen even when people aren't speaking, through body language and through their facial tones, and whether they have their cameras on, if it's a virtual setting, and if they're nodding and if they're not nodding. So yeah, listening is a huge aspect of what you can do as a speaker as well, surprisingly enough.
Absolutely. Active listening is probably the biggest skill that I was able to learn, especially doing interviews, because a lot of times, time is so valuable. So we're wanting to give as much as we possibly can, and we want to give value, benefit, enhance people's lives. But as an interviewer, that's not what we're here for. We're not here for that. I'm here to actively listen to you, share your voice, and then enhance where I can, little bits and pieces. But the show isn't about me today, it's about you. So becoming an active listener and sitting back and truly listening to what that person has to say, instead of already thinking about what you're going to say next, is a really beautiful part to show the engagement, create connection, and give that encouragement to the person that you're speaking to let them know that you're here, you're listening, and you're doing a great job.
Yeah, but you know what? It would be if I just sat here delivering 9 tips off a script and off a page, and you didn't really respond to it, and you didn't add your insights and your experience of how you've used these tips in your career, in your speaking journey, then it wouldn't have been as fun for anyone to listen, because it's been so good listening to how you respond and have reflected on these. And, your experiences have been different to mine, and you've actually added in things that I could potentially add to these tips, because there's a different experience and a different journey that you've been on. So I think that's really important. Listening is great, but then responding is also, like, how you respond is critical as well.
100%.
All right, we are on number 9, the last one, and this is going to be really obvious, but to some people, unfortunately, it's not done. It's that anticipation and that worry at the beginning, going, okay, I've just got to get this out. I'm scared, I'm nervous. And they forget to be real. They forget to be themselves. So number 9 is be real. Be real. Be you. I'm shaking you right now. Just be yourself. Be yourself. We've got all these tips and these techniques. And at the end of the day, if you get up there and you try to be Maria Forleo or Oprah Winfrey or Barack Obama, you're not gonna engage people. You're just not. They're going to see through that immediately. So the minute you are yourself, you are authentic, and you're a little bit vulnerable. You can tell people what you're thinking. Like, you can get up on stage and say, "Hey, you know what? I've got a few nerves today, guys. I'm so excited about standing up here in front of you, and this is something that I've been so pumped to do, but I'm a bit scared at the same time because I'm a bit out of my comfort zone." You're instantly being real with these people, and they're going to be like, "Hey, I'd be totally shitting myself too if I was in your situation. I feel you. I'm going to be listening, and you've engaged me already because I feel that you're being real." Yeah. People don't want to hear from fake. They want to hear from real.
We get enough of that on social media.
Yeah, well, it's true. And, we can also forget to have fun with it when we're being other people as well. So when you're being yourself, you can actually enjoy the process, because it's just a natural thing that's rolling out of you. But when you're trying to be someone else, it's not fun. It's actually really hard to do. It's acting. So if you're not a good actor, it's not going to be very easy or enjoyable to continue acting in that way.
You're exactly right, because as we were talking about before around having to remember things, if we are naturally being ourselves, then that's 50% of the crap we don't have to remember. Yeah, we might have to remember where to stand or how to hold the microphone or where to look, or like little things. And maybe we want to remember our dot points. But beyond that, whatever goes, goes.
I heard something about a year ago, which is, I wish I had heard this a long time ago, but I heard the sentence, "Perfection kills dreams." So if you stand up there and you are trying to be so perfect and not get a single sentence wrong, not stumble, not say one, not say one, I've said a few, I know, I've heard them. That's okay. I'm not perfect. And I don't pretend I'm perfect. And I'm sure that's okay with you too, as a listener, as an audience. I'm sure we're all just human. So don't let your imperfections or your being 90% ready stop you from actually getting up and sharing your unique voice.
I love that so much, because we're never going to be perfect and we're never going to be ready. It's like people that say, when should I have a baby? When should I get married? When should I buy the house? It's like, you know what? If I had a crystal ball, I'm sure I could tell you, but there is never a perfect time. There's never a perfect time for anything. We can prepare ourselves so much because we're humans. It just happens. You can blame it on the weather, you can blame it on the interest rates, you can blame it on whatever you want to blame it on. But at the end of the day, humans just want to get to know humans. Connection is so important. And the way that we build trust is by being ourselves, not being anyone else. Especially if you're, again, in a leadership role or in a position here, like running a podcast where we're trying to engage with our listeners and build trust and credibility. You're not going to do that by being fake and trying to be perfection in every single area of your life. We all like a little bit of a rough around the edges diamond.
Exactly. And you know what? The first time you played tennis, you're not going to be as good as the 50,000th time you played tennis, right? So you can start. I've done 150 podcast episodes on things you can't unhear over the last 4 years. I listened to the first few and I'm like, oh gosh, okay, right. Probably needed.
Please up.
Yeah, but that's okay. It wasn't perfect. And I've learned along the way and incorporated new things and new techniques. And now I really like the way it sounds. But in 4 years' time, I might be looking back to 4 years now and going, okay, right, there I wish there was a bit of work there too. We're a constantly evolving species and we need to be okay with that.
And it's like our businesses, right? We are all evolving. Our businesses are evolving, our processes and our procedures are evolving. What works one day may not work in 12 months' time. So we've got to be ready. And this is where I feel like as a society, we've become a lot well-equipped, a lot more well-equipped with being adaptable and resilient. So we need to be okay with, and this was one of the things one of the first things my coaches taught me was, Kiani, learn to be okay with 80%. I was like, what do you mean? No, 100% or nothing. But that's not realistic. That's not realistic. Even my 100% is unrealistic because I just get myself sick. So if we learn to be okay with 80%, then we're not going to have to wait to be perfect, or we're not going to have to wait for the perfect time, or we're not going to have to, whatever it might be, give yourself a bit of a break.
Agreed. And, if you've been listening to this and you're really keen to take your speaking or you're presenting to the next level and you didn't have time to write any of this down, I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes where you can actually download this document and go through it yourself. And things might just pop up for you as well, reading these tips and, what you've experienced in the past with your own presentations to your team or to your corporation or whichever work setting that you are in, your own reflections to it will be really important. You can learn a lot from those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And for our listeners out there, Maritza, if anyone does want to get in contact with you, I know that you run some workshops every now and again, and obviously you've got your amazing Guide Your Light network. You do corporate presentations, you do emceeing, you do everything to do with voice. You are the voice lady. Where can they find you? How do you want this to be connected?
I have the most. I'm so excited by it, but this brand spanking website that literally launched today, maritzabarone.com. And I had a friend who I met a few months ago put it together for me and I'm blown away, but it really articulates and visualizes exactly what I'm about. And the first time I saw the finished version of it, I was like, this is the first time I feel like everything I do is in one little umbrella. It's amazing. So if you want to know more about me, it's all there. It's incredibly all there.
.com. How exciting. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I get your time so frequently that I love being able to spend these times sharing all of the knowledge that you've got. And again, I'm sure you'll be on more often. But for everybody listening, thank you so much. The power of voice is so much more than just this sound that comes out of our mouths. It is deeper than that. It is who we are as our being. It's who we are as our core. It's full, getting in touch with your heart space instead of constantly leading with your head space. There is so much in here and is so much deeper we could go with all of these tips, but there are your top 9 tips for increasing and enhancing your power of voice. We will have a link to that document, as Maritza said, but please hit her up if you need to. Thank you for listening to She Can Humanise Business. We are very much on the path of creating new business ideas and inserting them into some old age businesses. So let's revolutionize our businesses. I would love to hear from all of you and keep listening. There'll be more episodes out soon. Take care. God bless. Thank you again, Maritza. It was amazing having you on the show.
Thanks, Kiani.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I would love to hear your feedback around what resonated and what key lessons and learnings that you took out of today's episode. You can find me on Instagram and on LinkedIn under the She Can Humanise Business podcast or Kiani Mills. I really hope that you were able to see, feel and experience a new way of humanising business.